Good morning. It's a beautiful morning. Of course the forecast, well, they did say it would be quite grey, a little bit overcast, no mist, and we've got a gorgeous start to the day with a little bit of mist and a bit of sunshine and sunrise over here shortly. So what I planned today was something that hopefully appeals to a few people who, if you find yourself frustrated with your photography, a little bit flat, all feels a bit stale. I know I get there fairly regularly, and this time of year, it's August, September time, light's a little bit flat. You don't often get this sort of condition, typical. But if you're a landscape photographer, can you apply the rules of landscape photography to wildlife photography, and vice versa? If you're one of my friends who's a wildlife photographer, which is what I came from originally, although I used to do things like sports photography, is using those skills that you've got as a wildlife photographer in some landscape photography. I think they cross over perfectly, and trying to go and do something today on a little bit of wildlife and apply those rules that we use in landscape photography onto that, and try and get the old creative juices going again, and so let's see how we get on. Wow, this mist is fantastic. So I'm going to see if I can just get a couple of quick shots with with some of these amazing cobwebs. And what have we got here? This is beautiful, isn't it? This is an Orb Weaver spider. So let's see if we can get a little picture of him before the mist goes. We're having a little bit of fun here with George. He's our big Orb Weaver, and I just thought I'd make a couple of comments about macro photography. You're going to have a go at doing it. It's very similar. Treat it like your landscape photography. I've done more wildlife than landscape photography in my time, and you realise after a while that every photo is just made up of two things. It's light and composition. I'm trying to take him and put him in a place in the frame that is complementary to his background. I was going to try and do two shots, as I say. One was macro, which I'm going to try and do now. We're going to do just a stacked version of very much a record shot of a fantastic, really large orb weave spider in this meadow here. And the other is very much the habitat shot. So I'm still using my 16 to 35mm, which I explained earlier. So 16 to 35mm, I'm using it at f4, which is wide open, maybe f5.6. I'm checking the depth of field. I'm going in quite close, trying to make a nice soft background, but obviously where it is habitat to the trees. You can see here the trees and the grasses, etc., things like that. So hopefully that makes some sense. So think about composition, even things like, is one of his legs in a shadow, or does the background look quite not right, or am I cropping things over? So you think about separation between items. Dear scale. He really is quite a big guy. Well, I'm going to try and do my stacked focus shot now, which I mentioned, and basically it's a fairly simple technique. I've got my 105mm on my D810. I'm using ISO 100. I'm using, in this I'm getting f4 at about a 400th of a second, so that's all fine. Even if he moves, it's going to be sharp. It's a 105mm lens, so anything about, and it's on a tripod. So, but it's important to get every shot razor sharp. I'll show you a little technique for focus stack shots. What I do is make sure everything is exactly how I want it. I'm focusing on the bit of George's body that is nearest to me, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to manual focus, and I will simply incrementally move that focus back, as I explained. But also what I do as a little secret is the first shot I do, and the other thing I should have mentioned, I've got it on my self timer, so there'll be a 2-second delay just to stop any camera shake. I can't stop George just moving in the wind a little bit. But what I'm going to do is put one finger in front. I know now when I come to do the photo stack, this will be, from now on, is where I'm going to do my stack from, so it reminds me that's the beginning. So I'm going to take probably 4 or 5 shots, moving the focus back each time. And as it's going to be end, what I'll do is a quick shot with 2 fingers in there. And I know now when I come to the post-processing, the images between the 1 finger and the 2 fingers will be the ones that I want to try and stack to get that, that sharp image. And composition for wildlife is the same as it is for landscapes. It's very similar. You think about separation of things, you think about lead-in lines, you think about rules of 2/3, and any good photo, as I've mentioned, is those components of composition and light. So if you are a landscape photographer and you think, well, I've never done wildlife, I would say things like insects are a great way to start. You don't even need a macro lens. You can do habitat shots with spiders, grasshoppers, caterpillars, butterflies, obviously the obvious one. So I'm framing it like a landscape shot. So where's my foreground interest? Have I got something in the midground? Have I got a background? But hopefully you can see how those disciplines that you use in landscape photography transfer perfectly onto wildlife photography, and vice versa. The only differences, of course, are you've got to rely on someone like Big George being here. Come out to a wildflower meadow, spend 3 or 4 hours there, go into an old oak woodland or a beech woodland in the winter or in the autumn where the mushrooms are out, you'll find something. But it's the same discipline. It takes time, it takes a bit of practice, but I promise if you're a landscape photographer, I really hope you maybe go and try a little bit of wildlife photography, and maybe vice versa. And I hope you really enjoy it, and I hope this has all been a little bit of help. A little bit just briefly about Big George. As I say, Big George actually is and he is here. However, it's not. It's actually Georgina. She's a she. She's a wasp spider. They only came to the UK in about 1920s in Sussex. They were first discovered at Rye, I think at the Nature Reserve in Sussex. They've slowly moved up across the country. And certainly the biggest spider I've seen in Kent for a while, certainly. You do get the big house spiders, but they're really boring. They're brown, they don't do much. These guys are incredible colours, as you see in the photos, and they're beautiful. Anyway, she's the female. The male will be somewhere around here, and I saw him yesterday when I came out in the rain. He was actually sitting in the web and she was up here. She will rules with. She is about 4 times the size of the male, and he will come in here and hunt for her, help make the web, and provide her with food, and then if he's lucky he gets to mate with her. But yes, it's the old adage that if he doesn't do a good job, she will kill him and eat him. I'll leave you now from Big Georgina here, who's been a bit of a star. I will say cheerio from the hay meadow down here in Kent.